Good Friday morning, guys. My name is Jerry Miller, and welcome to Real Talk, an insider's guide to real estate, life, and the pursuit of happiness. We're live on the I Love CVille Network. Guys, Real Talk presented by Yes Realty Partners, an Intrastate service company.
A home's best friend.
A home's best friend.
Literally on the way in,
Intrastate service company, proudly serving Charlottesville, Albemarle County, in Central Virginia. Judah Wickhauer's our director. He's making some adjustments on the fly. Our buddy Sean Tubbs, not going to make it today. He is resting those very precious vocal cords as we speak right now. Judah Wickhauer, why don't you go to the studio camera if you could, and let's welcome not only the distinguished gentleman, but a man who I think needs very little introduction, and the fabulous Neil Williamson. Hello, Neil.
Great to be with you guys.
It's great to have you.
So Sean, we have to give him a bit of a shout out. Was doing a little karaokeing, and his voice is a little under the weather, and he felt that it would be best to give it a bit of a rest today. So he'll be back next month. But for the one or two people that either might be listening or watching, tell us a little about Neil and the Free Enterprise Forum.
Well, the Free Enterprise Forum is a privately funded public policy organization focused on Charlottesville and the surrounding counties' local governments. Most of the power in local government rests in land use, and so a lot of our work goes around land use, real estate, property, and economic development and economic vitality. So we are not in favor of projects. We are only about policy, but we do speak from time to time about how a particular project is showcasing the policies, in fact. So you won't hear us in favor or against a new proposed private project. You may hear us in favor or against public projects, roadways, infrastructure, et cetera.
So one of the articles you just recently wrote, and kind of play off of that a little bit, does a public hearing without public make sense? Make a sound, not sense. And the reason I threw that out is you are consistently at every meeting, you tweet on every meeting, you write reports on every meeting. So if you can't attend, please donate to the Free Enterprise Fund so Neil can continue to do this, read his articles, read his tweets. Every time I do it, I learn something, and part of all this paper in front of me and the comment about do you ever sleep is I know you finished up one report in the morning and you crunched a bunch of numbers in the morning, and I'm struggling trying to keep up with you. But where do you want to start today? I know you've put out a couple great articles. Throw out there where you want to start.
Well, if the folks care to read our work, it's freeenterpriseforum.org, and I've been fascinated. Yesterday afternoon, I was tied up with some other matters, and the Census Bureau dropped their data, and I love data. I haven't had the opportunity to dig through the demographic data, but I've read a couple of summaries, and it's interesting. We're becoming more urban. Yep. And at the same time, I read an article in the Washington Post this morning where Washington, D.C. is whiter than it's ever been in 50 years. That is an example of this urbanization of folks moving back into the cities. Where would you put our local counties on the ranking for growth over the last 10 years?
So I won't look at the spreadsheet.
Don't look at the spreadsheet.
I love questions like this.
Go ahead, you take a
So
stop
refine
first.
that question a little more for
Sure.
us.
Who is the fastest growing locality in our area?
Oh, got it.
You got that one?
I think it's Nelson County. I may be wrong.
Okay, he says Nelson. I will say, and this is percentage, not actual people.
Percentage.
Percentage.
Yeah, so percentage, I'll go Green or Fluvanna.
You are both wrong.
Wow.
The number 13 county in Virginia, 13 locality in Virginia, is Louisa County,
okay,
which grew over the 10 years 15.02%.
Really?
The Greene County, which you mentioned, is 27, growing at 9.39. Albemarle is higher at 21, and it grew at 11.8%. Fluvanna is way down, actually, to 43. It grew over those 10 years by 6.74%.
What do you attribute the growth in Louisa to?
You really are looking at Spring Creek mainly, that area. When you take greenfield development, especially large greenfield development, you're opening things up to additional people. It is an interesting dynamic. You look at Nelson, which has a small base. We're running some numbers right now. Nelson County is really not growing that much over year to over year, but it is it's interesting to see because not all of Virginia grew. I mean, Virginia grew at 7.37%, but there are a number of counties that have negative growth. And, you know, when you're talking flat growth and below, I mean, nice places like Franklin County and Wythe County, Amherst County, all had negative growth. You know, we've got 2 pages of negative growth, mainly in the Southwest. So it's interesting to look at that and see that the slowest growing locality at negative 14.4% was Buchanan County. Sorry,
Buchanan.
Said it the wrong way there. But we have this is data. Everyone has access to this data through the census. Your tax dollars paid for this data. There's a lot to learn. I'll spend a fair amount of the weekend crunching numbers.
So questions are coming in already. So Quentin Beckham got it right. He said Louisa. Quentin Beckham's watching. He says, hello, Neil. Stephanie says, good morning for everyone. And people want us to dig into these numbers. So this was a great topic you brought up. This one's coming in about Charlottesville. What's the percentage for the city of Charlottesville? And then this question's also coming in. You mentioned Washington, D.C. being a whiter city than ever. How do those trends compare for Charlottesville and Albemarle County?
The second question first.
Okay.
I have not dug into the demographic data yet that is available through the census. I was summarizing really a quick headline that I read in the Metro section of today's Washington Post. But the first question about the city of Charlottesville for the 10-year period had an increase of 3,475 people, which is 7.9%, 36 on the list of localities.
So it's interesting. The percentages are one thing, but the number of people, you know, the change difference is kind of what I'm looking at. So Louisa was at roughly $5,000 up. Charlottesville is roughly around 3,500. That's an interesting number difference. I would really not have expected that with Louisa. And Neil and I last night were feverishly texting each other because this was hitting and we were both kind of reading it. And I said, "Look, do you want to tackle this today?" And look at this, we're tackling it. So thank you for doing it. But we'll get to some of the questions on there. But one of the things I wanted to throw out. So why is the census so important? What particularly the wrap around this election matters conversation? I know we're not going to get deep into redistricting and all that stuff. We don't have the time or the bandwidth to do that today. But why is census so important? Why is it important to the jurisdictions and to us?
Well, you have to look back and put on your history cap for a second that the decennial census is something that is mandated by the federal government. Mm-hmm. And it is really the basis of which the congressional districting goes. It also manages where money goes. Federal tax dollars are associated with the census. Now, that being said, we have the Weldon Cooper Center here, which does great work for population estimates between censuses, and the census is only as good as the work that goes into it. I would say that they've worked really hard through a pandemic for part of it, sure. Trying to get all of the folks counted. You can go back to the good book and know about censuses. Yep. And why someone found themselves in Bethlehem, because it was a census. It was a counting of the subjects. It is critically important.
He's talking about the Bible, guys. He's talking about the Bible, for those who don't know what he's talking about here. Okay. Just want to clear that up.
I was Googling real quick.
I know you were, and there were other people that were wondering as well.
Well, since it's the New Testament, I figured it was new and everybody knew it. So, But bottom line is the census is how we allocate funds and allocate votes. Sure. So it's critically important.
Yeah. And from one who sits on different boards and commissions, it's super important because that's how affordable housing dollars are doled out from this federal level down based on census tracts and so forth and so on. But I'm looking at, you wrote a great article that we sent out this morning, Villages at Terrace Green was approved, because I want to talk a little bit more about local stuff. But just taking a look at your Greene County number, right, that was number 27. You added 1,728. How many units was approved in this? I didn't get a chance to read that.
I believe it was 200 units, 200 residential units off the top of my head. I edited that this morning. I didn't write it. It's much easier to edit than write.
Sure.
But it was originally in front of the board on the 27th of July. There were some issues with the proffers. Proffers are things that a landowner will give to the locality to mitigate the impacts of the development. And the county attorney had some issues and wanted to, I would say, perfect the proffers in legal language, because it's a legal offering and they're voluntary. Of course, it also is a conditional rezoning. So if they don't like anything, they could say
Sure.
no. And that means that but you can't negotiate proffers from the dais.
You're not supposed to. Not supposed to being the operative words on that end of it. So it was a 5-0 vote, which was huge, right? That's a huge win for increasing density and increasing availability of product, right? We talk about this on the show all the time. This is, I think, a win. Would you not agree?
Well, I don't take positions on projects,
Sure.
but I want to make certain people know where we're talking about.
Sure.
As you're headed north on 29 on the right is what many locals call the moonscape. It's now grown back up since it was originally cleared right before the time of great unpleasantness, Keith.
Yeah, I call
2008.
it a depression, but you can call it whatever you want.
Time of great unpleasantness. This guy.
And that area there
My
has,
therapist is working on me on that. I'm getting there.
on the right side, was allocated for apartments, which are some of them are in and doing quite well. There's a great deal of development that's going on the southern end of Greene County. Why do you say that is? Because, well, Greene County is bringing forward product that comes forward perhaps at a more affordable rate.
Correct.
Because of the cost of land. And you'll see a new apartment building coming up across the street from this, an apartment complex that is going to be age restricted. Then there's another group of townhouses that are on the books to be on the west side of 29. So you're going to see Ruckersville as kind of booming. One of the supervisors, at-large supervisor Dale Herring, who I think you know from one of your commissions.
I know well.
He had said he sees this as a real town center, for a real there for Ruckersville.
And it's interesting because we talk about on the show all the time where the next thing is, right?
That question just came up. Question for you guys.
And I think Greene County and Ruckersville area is growing up because you've made a commitment to the water, you made a commitment to the sewer. You've got this corridor coming in, which is 29 North. So you just rattled off a couple of units. What do you think that total number is going to be, roughly?
It's probably going to be, timing is the only thing the government doesn't control, so it'll depend upon the market.
Sure.
But I anticipate you'll be seeing hundreds of units coming online over the next 10 years.
Yeah.
This is a hilarious comment from Quentin Beckham right here. Neil, if Bethlehem had used its census numbers properly, there would have been room at the inn.
I'm trying to remember what animal they laid down with. No, I'm sorry, brain jumping.
Quinn adds, and I would think the census could be helpful in some communities on choosing how to plan for schools, roads, and other infrastructure in support of a population boom. Beth Hyder says, good morning, friends. Nicholas Murphy says this conversation is fantastic. Ray Cadell watching the program. Hello, Ray. We love when you watch. Christopher Eagle. You have Nest, Logan Foster, and Real Estate 3. The question has come in twice. Which county has the most room for the biggest growth? And I think you just touched on that.
Well, and it's interesting because our chemistry is working a little bit, because I was just going to talk about the census tracts matter. So the addition, back to the transportation question, the addition of the Divergent Diamond interchange in Zions Crossroads and the roundabout that just been finished and installed over at Lake Monticello were part of the previous 10-year census tract with the projected growth, and that's why VDOT made the commitment to put in that divergent diamond interchange. It's a big fancy word. Make a long story short, it's designed to move the same amount of traffic as the traditional four-leaf clover intersection in a much compacted area. So VDOT was in front of it. It was all based on the census tract, and they were right, because Louisia's top ticket as far as growth in the last 10 years. So that's why these matter.
It is why these matter. These count actual people. It's a snapshot.
Sure.
But the other thing to know is that planners don't always get it right. For about 25 years ago, 30 years ago, I used to spend a week a month in Kansas City doing some work. And Kansas City built their airport north of town because that's the way the town was going to grow. It grew south. It's now catching up. But it used to be you fly into Kansas City and you get into a car and drive for 45 minutes. You saw the same thing with Dulles Airport when it was constructed. And now, I went to school very close to Dulles in a place nobody had ever heard of. And my high school was in the middle of a cornfield. That place is called Ashburn, and folks are kind of familiar with it now.
A little bit.
So it is interesting how you plan to grow. One of the challenges that has been talked about on this show is, and on Jerry's other program, is the concerns about schools and kids, and the need to have trailers before you can build a new facility, even though you may see the population bubble coming. The rationale is you don't want to build a school and not have kids in it. And redistricting of schools is another big issue that, when you get down to census tract data, makes a lot of sense on how you challenge to get the right number of students in the right facility. And one of the challenges Louisa has, based on anecdotal evidence, is long bus rides.
Yeah.
That's one of their challenges, long bus rides. I know people that have moved out of Louisa as their children become school age so that the child doesn't spend an hour on the bus.
But that's not exclusive to Flavanna Green. Some of these other roles. I went on my bike ride this morning. I rolled out at 6:45 this morning, and there were little people waiting at bus stops at 6:45 in the morning because of that very issue, that there was a 45-minute, 50-minute bus ride to school, and these were little tykes.
It's coupled by workforce challenges.
Sure.
We have some bus drivers driving 3 routes a morning, and that means that bus is doing that 3 times, so they have to be that much earlier.
Well, and Albemarle County's already said that they're going to aggregate routes if we don't get more drivers. And if they do that, that means longer rides.
So the superintendent from Flavanna County is a friend of Yona and I, and they need bus drivers.
All of them do.
And she sent an email to Yona, say, hey, what's Keith doing? You don't work. He can drive a school bus.
So which route are you driving?
I don't know. Mrs. Smith hasn't told me yet.
Because Flavanna's in school now.
They went to school on Wednesday.
Wednesday was the start for many of the localities.
Flavanna, Green, Louisa, to name a few.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, there's a bus stop on the corner of my street. It was full.
You'd be a great bus driver. I think the kids would be happy to see you when they got on the bus.
I'd probably get fired real fast.
No, you'd be a great bus driver.
You can't stop the bus for coffee.
Well, just to talk to people.
Latte factor, Keith. Latte factor.
Got it. Get a job, Smith. Get a job, Smith. I have a job.
You have a great, and you're excellent at it,
I have
Keith
a
Smith.
job. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, sir. So, I'm just looking at all kinds of great stuff. Anything on the feed to wrap up this, or can we move on to something else?
So, Mustache Dan Pettit. Question for Neil Williamson. How is Green handling the growth, Neil? Does it create water issues for Greene County, transportation issues for Greene, school capacity issues for Greene?
Well, that's a great question, Dan. The Greene County is positioned well so far. They made a decision. Let's roll back the time a little bit. I want to say it was about 2003. They made a decision to build a water treatment plant, and that opened up the idea that Lowe's and Walmart could come to Greene County. There is a new apartment complex across the street from that complex that is going to open up probably in the next 10 months. They're just finishing a road, and they'll be opening that up for leasing. The school, it's interesting, I was crunching the data yesterday on school enrollment, and there was a bit of a dip in school enrollment in Greene County.
Same in Nelson, by the way.
And Nelson is really challenged because Nelson's school enrollment hovers around 1,800 to 2,000. So anytime they go down from 2,000, it's a huge percentage drop.
Sure.
They've actually been running under 2,000 for about 5 years now.
And that makes a difference in their funding, too.
It makes a difference in their funding, but Nelson also has the lowest density per acre of any of the localities that we study.
Sure.
So it is Greene positioned well. They're in the midst of building a water impoundment facility. They're in the midst of untangling from the Rapidan Service Authority, which is a soap opera unto itself.
Oh, good Lord.
And it is working itself out, and it looks as though they are ready based on the manner in which they put
Shout out
forth
to
their-
Dale on that, because Dale was a huge.
on the RSA piece.
Yeah,
yes, they've had good leadership. Bill Martin was very involved in that as well,
sure.
and it's when you build something, and you've seen this with the authority, the Rapidan Service. I mean the Service Authority here in Albemarle and Charlottesville is for water is great. It works very well together. There are some conflicts, but on the solid waste side, Charlottesville's really not in the game. And Albemarle's picking up more of the slack because they're utilizing the service and they've worked it out. But these authorities were built in the late 60s, and some of their governance structures need to be revisited.
So when you say impoundment, you're talking about a dam or an actual lake or a reservoir, right?
It's a reservoir, and the land's been acquired.
Yep.
It has gone through engineering.
Yep.
They're working their way through the final permitting. My guess is that we're probably 36 months from water going into that reservoir.
And that's huge, guys, because I've been on the commission for 10 years, and that conversation's been going on for the least 10 years. I've been on the Planning District Commission. So that's a huge step forward, which then answers the question of these projects that you have coming up in Greene County, that, this will be the future water use for that.
Well, and also you have to examine, they, like all localities, have urban growth areas.
Sure.
And Ruckersville is a growth area, and so is Standardsville.
How does it handle its sewer? I can't remember.
It's all through the, the Rapidan Service Authority handles that for the growth areas for the most part.
Handle their own individual septic areas.
No, the growth area is tied into
Got it.
what I call city sewer.
Got it.
North Garden Grayson has got a comment.
I like North Garden Grayson.
We've just recently given him the moniker North Garden. He lives in North Garden. So, North Garden Grayson.
I like
Thank
it.
you for watching North Garden Grayson. So, this is for Neil again, from North Garden Grayson. And he's calling you Mr. Williamson. I'll change Mr. Williamson to Neil. Neil, you said the percentage in Charlottesville went up roughly 10%. Where are the people moving to if we're such a landlocked city?
That's a great question. In early, 99, 2002, 2003, the city made a decision to upzone and reduce parking requirements in student housing. What we saw was, you saw people building with less parking, students moving off grounds, so that it is that's where growth is happening, is growing up. There's not really a whole lot of greenfield development available in that 10 square miles. You're also seeing redevelopment. You've seen several single-family units become quads out in Belmont and other places, and those, of course, increase the population.
So of the additional 3,475, your opinion or your thinking, because we haven't dove into the numbers, it's mostly
That's a good chunk.
That student, it is that, but it's mostly you thinking student housing in like the flats and the uncommon, or are you thinking something else?
I'm thinking, you've got to remember, when you construct student housing, especially at the University of Virginia, you are moving students generally out of some other off-campus housing,
Got it.
which makes that housing available to someone else.
Got it.
So it's a moving around. So we, instead of having 10 students in 10 houses, they may be in one apartment building with 10 units, and they're counted individually.
Multiple folks are asking if the students are part of this census.
They are.
Okay. So the students are 100% part of the census.
Yeah.
Mustache Dan Pennant says, no, it's not Mr. Williamson. No, it's not Neil. It's Sir Williamson.
Oh, excuse us.
Sir Williamson.
We are not worthy.
From Mustache Dan Pettit. We like that comment there. Mustache Dan Pettit. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hey, Lauren. So, look, I think these are some great stuff. This is what I love about this show as we start pivoting and start going different questions, and I'm making some notes. I think what I'll do is I'll start diving in for a future show coming up soon where exactly the 3,475 came in, because we could do that pretty much with our Paragon system. But
Paragon is the
MLS
infrastructure that the agents use.
MLS.
Yeah.
But Albemarle County was nearly 12,000 plus.
Yes.
Now, we have more land, we have more subdivisions.
What,
and that
what,
kind of
what has happened since the last census in terms of developments?
In Albemarle County.
Oh, that's interesting. Oh, this is a test.
Yeah.
So what he's asking me, I think, is there were projects that were approved or in the process, I'm seeing if I'm getting this right, that in the, what did you call it? I call it the Great Depression. What did you call it?
That may have been postponed during the time of great unpleasantness.
Great Unpleasantness, a.k.a. the Great Real Estate Depression, as I remember it. And that's exactly right. So these projects sit in there, and what Neil is tapping into, if we rezone, so this...
We got more density down Avon Extended
So this
in
village...
the last 10 years.
So
That's
this village,
really in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Think 10 years.
So this Village Green just got the rezoning done. They have I believe it's 5 years, correct me if I'm wrong, to actually get the site plan done. And then once the site plan's done, that's good for another five years. So what these...
But Sir Williamson wants us to focus on which developments
Since-
in the last 10 years.
in the last 10
have
years.
added density to Albemarle
So
County.
tell me what Crozet looked like 10
so I
years
was trying
ago.
not to answer that
Yeah,
question.
well, I know, but
Jerry.
we could tell that's what you were doing right there. He's saying Crozet. Are we alluding to Old Trail there?
I think Old Trail certainly is part of it.
Okay.
Old Trail sat, that's for sure. And then all of a sudden it's a boom again. But it's not 11,000.
How many units in Old Trail?
Well, we did this the other day. So the town of Crozet is almost equal to Lake Monticello, roughly
Who's
around...
watching and helping us with this topic.
You are,
Yeah.
Thank you for reminding me.
Yeah.
Around around 8,000. I don't think there was... Do you really think there was several thousand?
No. I'm saying if you look at the limited number of growth areas where growth can happen,
I would agree.
or growth can happen in a significant number, you'd have to take a look at. You still had some things opening up in Forest Lakes at that time, at the beginning of that.
Correct.
Since
That's
you
exactly
had
right.
a couple of those sections were opening up. You've had you have folks that have been coming online in Crozet.
Yeah. Avon Extended.
Avon Extended. You've seen some growth in the development area. Stonefield didn't exist. It was actually known as Albemarle Place.
That's right. Yeah.
All of those apartments didn't exist. There was
Oak Hill and Whittington.
Oak Hill and Whittington.
Yeah.
All the development on
Fifth Street Extended.
Fifth
Yep.
Street Extended.
And all of that is spread out in the development area, less than 5% of Albemarle County.
Yeah.
I would also say that there's been some rural growth, but that rural growth that's areas outside the development area. I think the last time I looked, it was last building report, it was less than 40% is going up of new building permits are going up in the rural areas.
But there were subdivisions, rural subdivisions, because they changed the laws. Remember about 10 years ago about proffers and so forth and so on that were approved and now are just getting built. So that's part of what I was trying to get at. There are some of these other subdivisions, these traditional 2-acre subdivisions that sat on the shelf. Not so much in Albemarle County, but some of the other jurisdictions. But I'm going to have to dive into that. You might be right. It might be all Crozet.
It's not all Crozet.
Well, it can't be because Crozet's population in 2019 was 7,000 and change.
Yeah, so we
And
don't-
We're talking
That's
Albemarle
2019.
Counties.
We're
Yeah.
talking about the difference between 2010 and 2020.
Well, I did the 2019
Yeah.
reference to show that Crozet's not super populated.
Right. Right.
So-
And we're talking a delta here of 11,682 increase, 2010
Well,
versus 2020.
instead of guessing, we'll have those numbers for a
Good.
future.
That's
future show.
why when data comes out,
Yeah,
We
yeah.
look at it.
we look at it, we examine it, we try and look at all
I
angles
thought
of
the
it.
text said last night we weren't going to dive into data.
Well,
but
this is fun.
It is. Yeah, it's great. I love it.
More comments coming in. This is from Jackson for Neil and Keith. How is the future land use map and the upzoning going to impact density and population in the city of Charlottesville?
That's a great question. The change, I don't have the numbers in front of me there. If you go to the Charlottesville Plans Together .com website, you can look at all the maps. The change in single family, I think single family right now represents 59%, Keith, is that right?
Roughly, yeah.
59% of the land mass. I think it goes to 53%. So it is a change, but also the concept of moving, allowing quads, triplexes and duplexes could also increase the population, and that's part of what I see this planning commission and this council looking to do.
I think the population is definitely going to increase at the city, right?
It will. Will it double from what it went? Will we end up doubling the numbers we did the last 10 years? The thing about this missing middle, and just to talk about it from a development perspective, everybody thinks you're going to drive down the street and then all of a sudden there's going to be, quads and sixplex, one after the other. That's simply just not going to happen, because a lot of it's just the topographical layout of the lot. It's the geometry of the lot. It's all kinds of different things. And if you ever take a time and Google Street, some of these, I talk about the western cities all the time, but if you go down there and drive down on the Google Street view in some of these cities, one of them, my daughter's street in Seattle, they live to left and right a fourplex. You would not know it. From the street, it looks just like, from a massing perspective as anything else. Look, I think we're a long way from this getting it done. You and I have been having this online debate about when.
Bill McChenzie is watching.
Bill,
he's passionate about this.
Yeah.
Sean says, I have stuff to say about this.
Well, show up.
And then he said, my voice is broken.
Show up.
85% of life is showing up.
Show up. Don't go to karaoke the night before a show. Yeah, well, go ahead and chime in, Mr. Sean Tubbs, with your written firing fingers on that end of it. Look,
you think this is down the road? You think it's potentially sooner than he thinks?
I believe that the current planning commission and the current
City.
council, as well as the candidates for council, are in favor of the future land use plan.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And I think that there will be much gnashing of teeth, and the neighbors are organized.
Oh, yeah.
And they are passionate.
They have lawyers?
They have attorneys.
Yeah.
And it will get passed, it will get challenged, and it will likely stand up based upon my experience.
and I do not disagree with everything you just said. I just think that this is going to get done in short order. I'm not talking about the plan. I think the plan will done in short order and approved under this current city council and the future, because I agree with you 100%. I think who will get elected into the seats will be thinking the same way. We'll be supporting what's going on
And
here.
it's not a majority that's being elected this term.
That is true. I think you're 100% right. I think it will be contested in court.
But I think that you will see the next council vote on the zoning ordinance. That would mean that this council likely would have to act on the future land use plan, and then 24 months to write a zoning ordinance is not insurmountable.
Okay. We want to bet a bottle of well-hung bottle of wine on. Hold it, you own that,
Yeah,
so that's not fair.
That's not going to be a good bet.
That's not going to be a good bet for me. I hope you were right. I've just come with this a little bit of a jaded vision on it. Just been through this before, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope you're right that this actually gets done. But if it gets dragged out in court, God only knows how long that's going to take.
I believe that they are going to act with urgency and on contemporaneously be fighting it in court
While it's being enacted.
And be implementing
Yeah.
because they've already awarded the contract for the zoning rewrite. So,
and we have some news from Sean about Albemarle County's. You want to talk about that a little bit, because they're doing it too.
well, it is the case. Mr. Tubbs broke a story before he broke his voice that Albemarle County has an RFP on the street, and they had their first meeting, discussion meeting, I think it was on the 10th, for a consultant to rewrite their zoning ordinance.
Request for a proposal, for those that don't know what an RFP is, and talk about that process a little bit.
Well, the process is rather involved. Even when you have a consultant, they rewrite the rules of the road, and then it becomes law. The big challenge is always trying to determine the unintended consequences, because there are things that you want to do and things that you think you did, and then the lawyers get a hold of it and it's not what you wanted. So it's a very, very important thing that is very boring and very dry unless you're the one being skewered by that particular legal conundrum.
So we talk about missing middle all the time. We've been talking about upzoning in Charlottesville. Jerry constantly asks me what that might impact be on Albemarle County and some of the surrounding subdivisions, particularly the HOA setups on that end of it.
And the ones in Charlottesville, too.
Well, I want to get back to that for a second because our dear friend Matthew Gilligan put a post that I want to talk a little bit about. But I wanted to get a shout out to Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. They kept in a missing middle in the Crozet master plan, which wasn't a lot, but that was a huge, for me, from my perspective, at least you kind of, he's smiling, so at least it was kind of telling tale on how this may go.
Well, let me tell the story, if I might.
You tell the story, I'll drink coffee.
The Crozet master plan is under review. The Board of Supervisors in Albemarle had a work session about the Crozet master plan, the last work session before it goes to public hearing, first at the Planning Commission, then at the Board of Supervisors. There was the building of the master plan is what staff calls an iterative process. So when the board saw the plan in a work session in April, I believe it was, the board said, we really need some more affordable housing in this plan. We need some more variety. Staff took that and added this new density classification, stealing from Mr. Smith, calling it middle density. It's on the Tabor superblock. They then took
So that's a section.
That's a section
within
within Crozet.
Correct.
They took that to the Crozet Community Advisory Committee, and they talked about it at some length. We wrote about it when it occurred, and then later the group voted not to endorse the middle density piece.
So the community advisory board voted against it, correct? And then we just had an action at a work session that.
Okay, at the work session, there were two members of the Board of Supervisors that wanted to pull this out. One, Ms. Malik, suggesting that if this was included, it would create questions about the validity of the whole plan. And four supervisors wanted to leave it in and take it to public hearing.
Correct.
Of those four supervisors, I, of course, listening with big ears, heard different levels of support for this middle density. Some were incredibly supportive, and some were like, let's see what the public says. Mm-hmm. What this is going to do will energize and empower the citizenry to come forward when it comes to public hearing at the Planning Commission and at the board. The question
That's the reason I wanted to talk about this and get this out, that this is the citizens' opportunity to talk about that. And I think from my perspective, because I'm in favor of it, they had the opportunity to toss it out and they didn't. So this is a step, at least from my perspective, going forward. So at least now the public can comment on that and the board can make whatever decision.
Right, but the big thing is you've got to be able to count to four. So right now you have two members that were opposed to it.
Sure.
You have four members of differing levels of support for
Sure.
it. If you lose one of those four members, you're not counting to four anymore.
Correct.
So
Why is that? That creates a split vote.
A split vote, a tie, and
no.
nothing happens.
Yeah. That's right. So those who are not familiar with that, a tie vote is a no vote.
A tie goes to no rather than the runner. But that will be an interesting discussion when it comes forward. My guess is we're probably 90 days from a Planning Commission hearing. I don't think it's been scheduled yet.
No.
I could be wrong on that.
But I just think Albemarle County's taking at least a forward-thinking Let's get it in front of the public. Let's have a conversation with it on that end of it. So I just think that my hat's off to Albemarle County for doing that, my personal opinion, for what it's worth.
But it's important to note, in addition, in the media, 2 of the larger landowners in this super block said, we have no intention of increasing our density or doing anything with our property.
And then there's that.
And remember, what does I always say, Jerry? It starts with a willing landowner.
Correct.
I thought I was going to say elections matter.
Me too, but that's his other one. I think that's a tattoo he has on this arm.
He's got a few of them that he likes here. Sir Williamson, any updates on Biscuit Run's progress that you know of? And any updates on Fashion Scare Mall, Sir Williamson? Comments on the fee?
Allison Rabel from the Daily Progress and I have a running joke. What day of the week will it be when we get our first question about FSM?
Got it today.
And so we got it to Friday this week.
You didn't get one before?
Shocking.
Not this week. Not this week. I was
wow.
buried in data this week.
Yeah.
The other thing is you have to be out in public to get these questions.
There you go.
With regard to Biscuit Run, I think highly of the county stepping forward to make it a county park. They haven't really been able to aggressively do the work that's necessary.
Has anything been done?
There have been some planning meetings. There have been people that are very involved in parks that are very involved in this conversation. I am still waiting to see what land's going to be put back into the development area because we obviously lost a bunch of land, and I still haven't seen that come up on the agenda anywhere. But this development area, state park, that's going to be run by the county for 90 years, is kind of sitting right now. They're trying to open up a portion of it, but I am not as versed in it as Mr. Tubbs is.
So let's paint a little picture here, because those who may not know what Biscuit Run is and how we got from where we were to here. At one point in time, this was a subdivision that was approved for how many units? Does anybody remember the exact number of units?
It was over 1,000 units.
I believe so. It was
Hunter Craig and his team.
It was over 1,000 units. It was mixed use, so forth and so on.
And then what happened?
Go ahead. What happened?
Well, they couldn't make it happen. It was the time of great unpleasantness.
Time of great unpleasantness happened. The housing recession of 2008, 2009. It was a planned 1,200-acre park.
That's exactly right.
And Mr. Craig and a number of wealthy individuals pulled their money to build a planned neighborhood.
That's exactly right.
And then the you-know-what hit the fan.
That's exactly right.
And then they went to the Commonwealth.
And gave it to them.
And then they got a bunch of tax credits by essentially giving them this land. And then the Commonwealth said, we don't want to be in the business of running this land. And then gave Albemarle County, is it a 99-year lease?
I believe it's a 90-year lease.
90-year lease on this piece of property.
So just understand.
And now it's on ice.
Now it's on ice.
In the urban ring.
In the urban ring.
Yeah.
Across from
Wegmans.
Yeah. A couple of wonderful subdivisions.
Right by the interstate.
Right by the interstate.
Easily accessible.
There you go.
So what would it do to the housing market, Keith, if there were an additional 1,100 units?
I think we've been talking about needing of inventory.
We need more stock.
I think that would solve that problem.
Yeah.
Well, help that problem moving along. And it would be all new construction, right? Obviously. And, as we've been talking about, we're 5.5 million nationwide short on that. So this would help move that ball along. But here's the deal. Even if it was, Neil, how long would it take before I could sell a house?
Right. Well, the other part...
Even if today it got turned over, say, hey, here you go. You can make it back into Biscuit Run's 1,000 units.
10 years?
Well, it needs to go through site plan process all over again.
Does it have all the underground infrastructure in?
No.
So what are we talking, a decade, right?
I would say if everybody really wants this to happen, maybe 5 to 6 years, but probably a decade.
But I don't see it
We
being converted back to...
No.
Okay.
It can't be.
Okay.
It can't be.
It can't be, and that's what I wanted to get to.
You're doing it for the sake of a talk show.
Sake of a talk show.
Got it.
What I wanted to talk about, what's important for folks listening and watching to understand, this is, I believe, was in VOF? I can't remember.
It was an easement, and actually it was during the Kane administration.
Yeah.
There was a big event up at Mount Alto.
Yep.
That I think it was Mount Alto, maybe Monticello, I don't know. But it was a big event, and Tubbs and I were there, and they made a big fuss over it. And I literally will say what I said then. Proffers are what killed this.
Yeah,
Proffers and the time of great unpleasantness.
As Smith cries.
No.
Thanks for busting my chops. I
We're
appreciate
empathetic.
that.
We're empathetic to your
No, he's
plight.
not. He's just busting. Look at that smile.
He's empathetic to your plight.
No, he's not. He's having too much fun. Proffers do matter. Proffers did matter. Now proffers are like this whole goofy thing now that nobody really knows how to manage them, least of all the jurisdictions on that at the moment. But what I meant by Virginia Outdoor, VOF is Virginia Outdoors Foundation. But what the previous owners did is they got a ton of tax credits, which is wonderful for them. And they're getting to use these tax credits. They get, basically for all intents and purposes, gave the money gave the property to the state. They got tax credits. The state gave it to the county. But the reality of it is, I just don't think the county has bandwidth to figure out what it wants to do with this. To be honest with you.
Well, it's one of the issues that comes up somewhat regularly in Albemarle County. They've been gifted land in a number of places.
Sure.
And large acreages.
Yep.
And there is a cost to managing land and managing land that's open to the public. If you go and hike Pretty Creek Park, for instance, you'll know that that was originally scheduled to be a reservoir. As you walk up and down the steep slopes, you can see why. But that park needed to have trails cut. Volunteers cut most of those trails. But there's a primitive potty there. There are parking that needs to be managed. Gate has to be closed at dusk. I mean, there are things associated with these things.
I can speak to that in Fluvanna County. As you well know, Pleasant Grove is 1,000 acres. It was bought, 15, 20 years ago. It is if you have never been out to Pleasant Grove in Fluvanna County, do yourself a favor, go out. It is an unbelievable, has 30 some odd miles of hiking trails, biking trails, running trails, horse trails. It's just an unbelievable asset to our county that I go there on Sundays.
And it's empty.
And it's empty.
Yeah, I'm amazed at the COVID.
Literally, nobody's there.
The COVID impact for parks in Albemarle County, at least, was dramatic.
Yeah, I would agree.
Everybody found the parks to be a place where they could be safely distant and do their thing. And I believe the numbers are available online, but I know that the usage of the parks, I think, doubled. Of all of the parks. And now remembering, and that's with some of the beaches closed, et cetera, because of COVID regulations at the time. But it is a testament to what Parks and Recs does with what they have, but it's also a testament to what the capital costs are for getting a park off the ground.
So to pivot a little bit to something to give kudos to Jerry, what he constantly talks about. So the Pleasant Grove has at least a dozen soccer fields. No tournaments are there.
Yeah.
No tournaments. Fluvanna County High School.
There's no youth tournaments in all of Central Virginia.
Fluvanna County High School, brand new high school built whatever many years ago, 10 years ago, has 999 seat, because they couldn't go over 1,000 seat auditorium that makes JP, on the level of that, never have concerts there. Brand new track and field, brand new all the stuff, and they just don't have that. And part of the pushback that I get when I ask these questions, where's everybody going to sleep? Mm-hmm. That's the big thing. And go back to tourism is back. Your great article about that. So how are we going to? I know it's growing a little bit, but how can we take this awesome assets that are out in Fluvanna County? It's my home county, to go ahead and try to get these events coming out that way.
Right. Well, I think it's important to recognize that there are different levels of events.
Sure.
And I see many of the auditoriums being used for smaller bluegrass kind of events, not necessarily Lyle Lovett and his big band. But
Lyle Lovett. I love Neil so much. I love his pop culture references.
But the big
I'm
question.
trying to figure who that is, but
That's who Lyle Lovett
I'm only kidding you.
But at any rate, the question about fields
He's having too
and
much
tournaments,
Love him.
Jerry brings this up, and I've mentioned a number of times when Mr. Grisham built his baseball fields
Is it Coves Creek?
in Coves Creek, that there's no lighting,
Yeah.
and the county wouldn't let him put lights up.
Well, Darden Tao, I was there last night playing pickleball, and they have 6 state-of-the-art pickleball courts, as good as you will find
No
in
lights?
Virginia. There are no lights.
And that is a community decision
Yeah.
based upon night skies and the
Light
import.
pollution.
Light pollution.
Yeah.
And you'll
come
be
on.
hearing more about that. Yes, it's absolutely true.
Oh, no, I get that, but
Bro,
there's
we literally had to leave.
but there's
At dusk, we left.
but there's ways that you can mitigate light pollution.
You're right, because
They're-
the lights now aren't the lights of 20 years
They're-
ago
they're-
that have these floods everywhere. They shine down.
They're
focused.
total cutoff lights is what the way they're referred to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of the shopping centers now that have been built in the last 20 years
Have 'em.
have the
They're
total
required
cutoff.
to
They're
have 'em.
required by code. It could be done, but the challenge is when you focus the light down and you're trying to see if Jerry's shot was in or not, it may be
It was
off
in,
to the
damn
side, and it may
I
not
never
be well
thought that
lit.
was in question.
Never thought it was in question.
Well,
Well, he doesn't know we got cameras set up over there. So-
Matt Wilson, who's the executive director of SOCA, the soccer organization of Charlottesville, Albemarle, he said, I've been trying
Yeah, I know.
to host tournaments here, but until we get lights at Dart and Tau, we cannot do it.
Right.
Well, lights, but where are they going to stay? Because I'm
You're saying we're under a hotel.
absolutely. I'm a recovering Division I athlete's dad. So are you, right?
Offensive lineman, William and Mary Tribe, go Tribe, go. Jimmy Laycock, Paul's Deli, College Deli.
Well, mine was just a little old swimmer.
She was a swimmer.
He was a
Yeah.
Division I swimmer. But
Was he a center or a guard?
He was a guard and a tackle.
Oh, guard and attack.
he was. He's just huge.
Good guy.
But my point is we've done a fair number of traveling, right? That's just the way it is. You've done it too, growing up. And I've always wondered, why am I going to Roanoke?
Well, that's
Right.
a great point. The idea that Jerry's talked about, sports tourism. We had 4 years where my son Mark played travel baseball. If he had his druthers, he would have been a baseball player, but God made him a big 300-pounder, so he played football. But for those 4 years, literally, those summers, every other weekend, Mark and I were off in a crappy little car, staying in crappy little hotels.
Was it Legion baseball?
We actually played in USSSA.
Okay.
I'm glad I remembered that. But USSSA, and we've a lot of Roanoke. My daughter played in travel tournaments for soccer, and I can't remember. There's a really weird road off of 64 that there's a huge soccer facility out there, and there are hotels nearby, and that is the rub is you've got to have some place for them to stay.
Yeah, I mean, we have a state-of-the-art swimming facility just to focus on swimming.
I mean, we have UVA here.
That's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
right?
The coaches could scout the athletes that come to the tournament in their backyard.
So we used
And the
to.
athletes can see UVA as a place to go.
So we used to have tournaments in Fork Union Military Academy.
That's a great facility.
They're back to doing that. The JSLs this year were Fork Union.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
But when Yvonne was swimming there, used to get her there at 5:30 in the morning. They used to have tournaments there because there's a hotel. There's a little motel that's part of Fork Union Military. It's nothing special, but the families that would travel, that's where they would stay.
The JSLs also were at Woodbury Forest. There was a split of where it was, but it was not at UVA this year.
Oh, Woodbury Forest is one heck of a
That's
facility.
fantastic.
Oh,
I
man.
actually interviewed, when I was writing for the Daily Progress, I interviewed Eddie George at that hotel.
Oh,
by Fork Union.
oh yeah.
Yeah, the Heisman Trophy winner and FUMO alum. Paul McCarter is watching, has something for Neil Williamson. Paul is of Avenue Realty. So that's 6 firms that I've watched so far today. And he says, Neil and Keith, Wendell Wood also wants to build a big development and has a lot of the infrastructure like water, sewer ready to go in the same area that Neil was talking about. I think he's talking around Biscuit Run area. That Paul, is that what you're referencing, Paul? If you could offer a little more insight into that would be great. Jamie Turner, who's a Woodbury Forest alum, just got really excited that Woodbury Forest got mentioned on the program. He's Mr. Gordonsville in Orange County. We love you, Jamie Turner, who just went to Williamsburg this past week and had lunch at Paul's Deli.
Well, you should have lunch at Well Hung Vineyard today.
Well Hung Vineyard is the place to go, Jamie Turner, if you want a meal in Gordonsville. Ray Cadell, we will get to this comment. He says, by the way, lights at Dart and Tau were promised to not happen. My in-laws lived directly across the street from the tennis courts for many years. They have both passed away now, and I'm not certain where that issue currently stands. So right across from the tennis courts would be Cascadia.
No.
There's a couple of developments that are right
There's
across.
Cascadia, or there's
Where Andre Xavier lives, who's watching the program.
correct. So just to talk a little bit about downtown, there is a hotel about ready to come online, and I just know about it because it was one of my clients. It's about 150 room hotel on the corner of 250 and 20, I guess you would call it. Stony Point
Yes.
is 20 is what I
Yeah.
refer to it on that end of it. So I actually talked to him yesterday. They're going to bring it online probably late fall, early spring next year. So there's an extra 150. But I will tell you, it took us years and years to get that hotel built there.
Mr. Gordonsville, Jamie Turner, says this, and you will like this.
Uh-oh.
He says, I love Well Hung because not only is the food great, but they are open on Mondays in Gordonsville. So he is a big fan of Well Hung. Paul McCarter says, off Highway 20, where Mill Creek Road intersects, Wendellwood is trying to do a project.
There are a number of projects that are kind of in that trying to do phase. The real question is now, and Keith can speak to this probably better than I can, is looking at where the lots are going to be in 10 years, 5 years, 10 years. I think we have to have a real community conversation if less than 5% of the land mass is an appropriate amount to carry the growth.
So where they're going to go is, you just wrote about it, or your team member wrote about it, Greene County, Fluvanna County. We've got 325 units coming out in Fluvanna County here very quickly.
If you had inventory
Correct.
available in Albemarle County in an expanded growth area,
They would sell.
they would sell.
And we spent a little bit of time, I went a little bit too geeky on Tuesday about, the drive till you qualify, but there, you can increase your purchase price if you're not traveling 15 miles, out that way. You're coming a little bit closer in.
And I think I found that to be a geeky conversation.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. But the other part is, I see my daughter in Boston, and they have one car and they very rarely use it. And they have one parking space. But that's because they have an infrastructure. There's the T.
Sure.
Everything is right there
Sure.
for them.
Sure.
Unless you're giving up the car and you have a plan,
Sure.
you aren't going to see all of that money recovered.
Well, and then we took a
Well Hung Vineyards is getting a lot of props right now in the feed.
Go ahead.
Pass it on to
Yeah,
you.
no, his head's big enough.
I think Lauren says it's impossible to get food on a Monday in the county. Thank you, Well Hung. Jamie Turner just said it's nearly impossible to get dinner in Orange on Monday unless you want fast food. So thank you for being open on Mondays. Lauren adds that Well Hung Vineyards has got very good food. Sean Tubbs is now on the feed with the comment. This is from Sean Tubbs. You are Miss Sean Tubbs. This project has been dormant for many years. It would take expansion of the growth area onto that side.
Sure.
It was called Somerset Farms, and I've not heard anything about it.
I haven't heard anything recently about it, but Sean and I both have heard it mentioned in several meetings in kind of a, whereas this could be, because
But let's talk about what.
And that's in response to Paul McCarter's comment
Yeah.
about Wendell Wood's project.
right, and the thing is, where do we grow from here? You go up 29 right now and you think, oh, we've got all this development happening. Well, if you dig deeper, how many lots are available right now in North Point?
Oh God, I think it's like 1,200. Well, it will be ultimately.
Yeah, no,
but
today.
I couldn't answer that.
Everything that they have has been sold, I believe.
That's exactly right.
They're going to be opening up more phases.
That's
just like
29 North. Is that Polo Grounds Road?
No, it's north of Polo Grounds Road.
Profit Road?
It's Profit Road.
Profit, right
Just
on-
north of Profit Road, behind
Okay.
84 Lumber.
Yeah, and I know that because Stanley Martin is one of my clients, and they are they're sold out over there. I mean, literally, if you want a new construction single-family detached home in the county of Albemarle, I almost hate to say this, it has to have a 9 or a 1 in front of it. It is
You
getting
can find single-family detached homes in
single.
Albemarle.
Single.
New, you were
Oh,
saying.
you're saying brand new.
Brand new.
Okay, brand new.
New construction.
Stanley
I thought I
Martin-
said new construction.
Okay, you're right, you did.
Yeah.
Stanley Martin's got it within 8 in Glenmore.
Oh, that's when you start at.
Okay.
But by the time
It's got
you
low 8s.
yeah, by the time at the end of the day, trust me, I've got a couple of clients doing this.
Oh, you're saying that doesn't have the bells and whistles.
Well, you add things to it,
Okay.
right? Everybody always adds something to a new construction thing. So, okay, let's say you're starting at an 8, but But try to find one. Try to find one at 8. They're sold out in Glenmore. There's like only a few left. North Point is sold out.
What about the one that's coming down Avon Extended that Stanley Martin's doing?
Yeah, but there's no single-family detached there.
Got it.
That's all townhomes and what they call villas.
That's terrifying. Did you hear what he just said right there? If you want new construction in Albemarle
I've
County,
got clients. I can't find
But,
it.
It's gonna have an 8.
but that's a single-family home.
Yeah,
That's a
that-
single-family home.
And
yeah.
Keith's missing middle, generally speaking, isn't a single-family
That's
home.
exactly right. So that's what we need to do is we need to increase inventory so we can get some product out there that hits.
And so when you're looking 10 years out, where will those lots be, and will there be any? What's left?
This is a great comment from Sean. Sean, I wish you were here. Rest that those vocal cords, baby, so you can sing "Ice Ice Baby" next Wednesday at Rapture for karaoke. This one for Neil and Keith from Sean Thomas.
We're gonna have to call the owners of Rapture.
Mike and Cecilia, friends of mine. Okay.
We need to reach out.
Or what we need to do is get Sean to do karaoke here on set.
Oh,
There we go. This is from Sean. Are you ready? This is
am.
good. If I was on the show, we would have had these facts out there by now. Okay. He's putting them in quotes. So this is literally Sean talking through the keyboard here because he's put these in quotes. And you know what's interesting is I can see him typing this.
But he wants to be here, guys. His voice is broken.
Yeah, so Sean, are you in the basement studio right now typing these comments? He says, in quotes, speaking of housing, Charlottesville added 2,224 housing units, an increase of 11.6% since 2010. Albemarle County added 5,169 housing units, an increase of 12.27%. Louisa added 1,170 units, Greene added 955 units, and Fluvanna added 744 units. There are only 60 more new units in Nelson County since 2010.
yeah, I would agree with.
And the other thing to note, to put that in context, if I'm remembering right, the national average for new housing was 6.26%, as I remember from an article I read this morning. But it is, so we're doubling
Which is an
that.
increase, by the way.
No, it was a decrease.
Was it
over
a decrease?
Remember, we're talking about 2010 to 2020 versus 2000 to 2010.
I missed that. Thank you for correcting me, Sir Williamson.
I'm glad that Sean got those facts out there.
Yeah, he must feel much better now about himself. But let's talk about this project. You're trying to ask me where the new units coming up, right, and where they're going to be, and you kind of know I can't answer that question, right, because you're throwing this at me, trying to answer that question.
It's kind of like a trap.
It is a trap.
It's a trap.
It's a trap, Smith. Yeah, and I'm not smart enough to stay out of them, so I'm going to come right in and jump into it. But I think the short term is going to be what we're seeing. The short term, because this particular project, what was the name of the one that Wendell Wood was doing? What was the name of it?
Somerset.
Yeah. So let's talk about that for a second. So let's say they want to redo Somerset. The first thing it needs to do is get into the growth area.
That's step one.
That's just
It's a comp plan amendment.
It's a comp plan amendment. That is a process unto itself. You could conceivably, and correct me if I'm wrong, you could conceivably do that and concurrently do a rezoning application, right? So
We've seen that done, yes.
Yeah, you could technically do that. That's assuming the county lets you do that. They might just say, no, you do the comp plan amendment, then bring back the rezoning. Oh, and then when you're done with that, go back and do the site plan, back to your 10 years, right? I think that probably might be a little bit longer than that. And Sean will know this. How long did it take North Point to get from original, maybe you know this, Neil, original concept to putting?
North Point was starting to be discussed when I started this job. It was approved in 2006. Then there was this time of great unpleasantness.
Okay, enough of this, all right? Enough of this, will you?
And that slowed everything down.
I am the executive producer, I'm just saying.
Executive producer, you got a comment coming in from the feed from Sean Tubbs.
Yeah, hey, Sean Tubbs.
He's got a request for you.
Oh,
It
God.
might be a demand. He goes, pitch my newsletter. Pitch my newsletter.
No, your ass
please."
needs to be here to do that.
He says, pitch my newsletter.
Stop playing on karaoke and get your butt in
He
here.
says it's from the newsletter. You get an advance of what's coming out, the census data. Your viewers get a preview, Keith. They get a preview.
I tell you what,
pitch the newsletter.
I'm pitching a
Exclamation
newsletter.
point. Okay.
Oh, good Lord.
That's what he just said.
Okay, I'm pitching it. Read his newsletter, okay? There you go.
come. It's
I
good to-
actually do.
It's fantastic.
These two, and all kidding aside, we're joking around and we're having a lot of fun. And I started it off a little bit with Neil Williamson and the Free Enterprise Forum, but
They're legit.
Town Crier,
Yeah.
right? Google it. You know, Mr. Tubbs put the damn link in the
He
feed.
put the link in
There
it.
you go.
Yeah, he did
put the
put
link
the
in the
link.
feed. Donate. You've got an article here that we haven't really got to. Hearing without public makes a sound. You got to get engaged, folks. Right? You can't depend on these two gentlemen to do all this for you. Get engaged. Your opinion matters. And just get out there. They're all now live via Zoom, right? You can get in there and participate in it, but please support these folks, man. They do some great work.
Sir Williamson has got a lot of comments coming in. Sir Williamson's a popular guy. This is from James. You got a new hotel on Pantops, plus 2 more hotels up there.
Is that my brother-in-law?
How far off are we nowadays on hotels? It seems like the gap should be closing a little bit on the hotel issue.
Hotel demand continues to be strong. I'm thinking also we've had new hotels on 29 North.
Yep.
We have UVA planning their conference center that will include hotels. Hotel rooms. There are, but really when you get to about 85% occupancy is when hotels. This is similar to something I heard about churches. When you get to 85% full, you're full because it's when they want to come. So right now, if you have something happening on a UVA football weekend, a family event, you probably aren't having people stay in town.
Yeah.
And that's why the Airbnb stuff works so well.
I tell this story all the time. Pre-COVID, daughter number 1 getting married. My job was to find a hotel room for about 100 New Yorkers to come down. And the second part of my job is to find someplace to drink in Charlottesville after 2 o'clock in the morning. I won't talk about that, but I found a place.
There is no place.
Yeah, well, there is.
Well, your house.
We'll see.
Okay.
You can have a private party,
Oh, okay.
right? You can buy a bar and have a private party. That's what we did. We had a private party. So I went to go talk to my buddy who was running the Omni.
Was that at Well Hung?
No.
Was it not at Well Hung?
This was a bunch of years ago before Well Hung this is, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago, 8 years ago. I'm getting myself into trouble. I can't remember when my first daughter was married, but whatever it is. But the reality of it is I went to the general manager of...
Now people are asking where the bar is open at 2 a.m.
No, they're not open.
Look, Jack Maxwell just
it
posted
wasn't
that.
open.
They rented it.
I rented the bar for the day.
Let me clarify this for Jack. He rented the bar.
I rented the bar.
Okay.
So the general manager of the Omni told you what?
Thank you very much, Neil, for bringing Smith back on subject.
Shiny object.
Thank you. Squirrel.
Yeah, fire.
Squirrel. So anyways, I went to the general manager, a friend of mine. I said, look, hey, I need 100 rooms, September 17th. It was like 2016, whatever year it was. I said to September 17th, and he goes, what year? And what do you mean, what year? And you think I would know this, right? Because of the commission and all this stuff. They were booked 16, 17, and 18 for that date for 3 years in a running. So I've heard the numbers I've heard is we're several thousand hotel rooms short at any given time. Does that make any sense
Your
to you?
son-in-law says it was September 17th, 2016.
Would that be Harry?
Yeah,
Nice
Harry
job, Harry.
just with that.
Call me up. Jeez, I'm
17,
back.
2016.
Oh, Lord.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you.
The reality is that
Love you, Harry.
That the demands for weekend stays mainly
Yeah, sure.
far exceed the weekday
But
stays.
that's typical in the hotel.
It
business.
is, but there has to be some weekday. There has to be some there for the weekday stuff.
Sure.
When we look at the tourism numbers, which I want to get to, the concept that we saw going forward for the last 3 months of the fiscal year were through the roof compared to the COVID impacted year. Now we were still $2 million down from 2019, which was pre-COVID, so we didn't get back to there, but it was exceeding 2019 results as we look at the tourism numbers. Now the other thing to remember is where the hotel is located matters.
Sure.
I, being someone who had a recent wedding, I'm amazed that we don't have hotels at the Crozet interchange of 64. And that's a conscious decision.
It's interesting you should say that. I had a client in that was a lead from the show from Arizona, looking for property, looking for new construction in the Crozet area. I had a hard time finding a hotel room downtown Charlottesville, nonetheless. She wanted to be here for 2 weeks. And
2 weeks?
Yeah, she was, she was trying. It takes time to find a home these days. And we were successful, thank God. But
you got the house?
Yeah, we sure did. So the
real talk.
Yeah, go real talk. But the reality of it was just she couldn't stay next to her kids who were in Crozet because there wasn't a hotel. And she just blew her mind. What do you mean there's not a hotel here?
And what else is in Crozet?
Oh, I don't know.
King Family Vineyards?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Vineyards, breweries.
Yeah.
Breweries?
Sure.
And wedding
151
venues?
is right around the corner.
151 is right around the corner. They would go crazy. An affordably priced hotel would do exceedingly well. Albemarle has made a conscious decision not to be anywhere USA and not to have commercial activity at their interchanges.
So I know there's another hotel coming up in Zion's Crossroads. I'm kind of deep into that area as far as its growth goes because of the commission we sit on and some business on
Ray
it.
Cadell says when you're talking hotels, you should also include the words convention center with it.
That's 100% right. Well, UVA is trying to plan one, to do one. I don't know if it's, I think it's going
to be more UVA focused,
It's
unfortunately.
probably. They'll have the same problem with hotel rooms as everybody else is having at this point, but it's going to suck rooms out for sure.
Well, I will say that the Hillsdale Conference Center, which came online during COVID, really, is a great venue for events, but it is limited in size. And Ray's comment about a convention center, I am becoming concerned that conventions may not come back. We've kind of done the Zoom conventions for 2 years running.
One of the best live debates I've ever seen was at the Hillsdale Conference Center. The debate hosted by Neil and Sean Tubbs. It was fantastic.
In an empty ballroom.
Charlottesville City Council debate. You did a hell of a job, my friend.
We are working, Sean is diligently working right now on scheduling part two, which will be the general election discussion from the Hillsdale Conference
Do
Center.
you think you'll have a Nikiah Walker commitment or showing during this debate?
I had a very nice conversation with Mayor Walker early this week, and I anticipate as a candidate she would be interested in being a part of that.
Okay, Harry Tyson.
Good for you, buddy.
I always have to look at my engraved wedding gift, Leatherman, to confirm the date of our wedding.
So
You have yours in your pocket.
I have a wallet that my daughter gave me that has all.
Here's my.
There's how Neil Williamson
That's my
knows.
daughter's date.
Daughter's date is on his Yeti cup. This is a good one for Neil. This is from Todd Raff, who watches the shows all the time. They tried and failed for a hotel in Old Trail.
They did. And they tried and failed for a hotel proposed elsewhere in Crozet, and it fell apart not only on the zoning aspect of it, but on the financing, because the financiers thought the hotel should be at the highway interchange.
So let's get this straight. So if we have, let me just go back to our Tuesday conversation. Just popped into my little brain at the moment. So we've got a lot of activity going on in Crozet. We've got a lot of, Yona and I actually go into King's Family Vineyard on Sunday with my parents. They're going to spend the afternoon with them on that. If there was a hotel there, wouldn't that take a little traffic off the roads? Right? If I got a hotel there and I'm going to King's Vineyard and all that stuff, instead of folks having to travel from downtown Charlottesville, I don't know. Maybe am I grabbing for straws here?
Would it be more environmentally sensitive?
There you go.
Would it be safer for anyone who was perhaps at a wedding, instead of having to drive into town to find a bar that they rented for 2 o'clock in the morning, they could go to their hotel.
Okay?
They could go right back to their hotel. There's a lot of pluses to it. I understand the vision of not wanting to be anywhere USA, but we want to be somewhere USA.
Yeah. Well, as always, these conversations are awesome. I'm sure there's a ton of feeds coming in here.
There's a lot coming in here. Do you want to do rapid fire on some of these?
You go, brother.
So multiple folks are asking Neil about a planned high school in the northern part of Albemarle County and whether or not that's going to be a reality.
There has been land dedicated for school. There's been discussion at the board level, at the Board of Supervisors level, remembering the Free Enterprise Forum does not cover the school board, so we aren't as versed in this. But the high school has moved to a centers project, whereby they have a center that's located in the former ComDial building that focuses on tech. They have other centers in different places, and what they're moving toward is a smaller centers-oriented model rather than building another big high school, I believe. Sean can yell at me on the feed if I'm wrong.
Sean is on the feed. He said, but again, you'd have to get it through the comprehensive plan process, and that would be difficult to achieve. He said Albemarle High School expansion is in the form of the two centers. One is at the former ComDial, and another one going near Monticello. Neil is 100% correct. That's from Tubbs, from the basement, his studio, resting his vocal cords.
But his fingers are firing, aren't
Todd
they?
Rath. Personally, I did a septic study in northern Nelson for a 50-unit hotel on land I own on 151. The economics do not work without public sewer.
He's right.
That's Todd Rath.
Yeah, he's right.
On the feed.
He's right. I have some experience with that myself. He's talking about an on-site sewage stuff, and not only is it expensive from a construction perspective, but the approval process is pretty laborious.
Well, and if you visit our good friends up the street from Wellhung Vineyard and the Barbecue Exchange, and you use their facilities, you'll find that they have a rather unusual facility. It's a grinding toilet that they had to put in to be able to work that use as a restaurant into the infrastructure that was available.
You handled that very well, by the way. That could have went a little sideways. That was well done. You want to describe how that works, or you're going to stay away from that?
I don't know
how you can do that.
Jack Ferguson Maxwell, who's watching in Scottsville, says Crozet is overcrowded enough. And multiple folks are asking if you talk with the folks that actually live in Crozet, we don't want more density in Crozet.
That's absolutely the case, and that's why I believe they will be coming out to the public hearings and sending emails to their planning commissioners and supervisors, and that's what I encourage them to do. Be engaged. It is critically important that the supervisors hear from the community for what they want their master plan to look like. What they do in the end is up to the supervisors, but to a T, each one of them and the planning commissioners read their emails.
Oh, yeah.
They don't always respond to every email, but they read the emails and they do take it under advisement. So I encourage you to stay engaged.
And that kind of goes back to this public, right? You recently just did a public hearing or public meeting. I think you were the only one there. Was that not correct? So tell us about that.
Well,
Seats available.
Seats available.
Yeah.
Virtual seats available.
Well, that's the point I'm trying to make here, folks. We're please get engaged. Please get involved, right? And even, my son-in-law, Harry, that's up in Connecticut. I know he's up to his ears with working and helping with two little grandbabies. But get engaged with your local community. And one of the, I don't want to use the word positive because it's a poor choice of words for this, but one of the benefits that's kind of happened out of COVID, the jurisdictions, the counties, the boards, the commissions got really good at this Zoom stuff and having citizens participate in it. Prior to COVID, you needed to physically go there. You needed to physically sit next to Mr. Williamson, or Sir Williamson, excuse me.
Sir Williamson.
I apologize. Sit next to him.
And that engagement pretty much catered to retirees, independently wealthy individuals, or folks that were entrepreneurial that could make their own schedule, because the meetings were happening during the workday.
And that would be an interesting thing for the Free Enterprise Forum to tackle, is what has the engagement increase has happened
Through the roof, I would bet.
Since COVID.
It has increased, and to your point, Jerry, they actually do not hold public hearings until the evening sessions for most of the localities.
Got it.
So where the public has an opportunity to speak at the beginning of a meeting in Albemarle, for instance, at 1 o'clock, there's another opportunity at 6, and all the public hearings are held in the evenings for that very reason.
Yeah,
and that was a conscious decision that was made 15 years ago.
Yeah, that's been going on. Even some jurisdictions did it long before that.
Right.
And it was for that purpose.
And the reality is that Albemarle is one of the few jurisdictions that holds board meetings during the day. Most of the jurisdictions, maybe 4 o'clock, but most of the jurisdictions have their public meetings in the evening.
Because it's a better opportunity for the public to
and for the supervisors. That's one of the things that I'm kind of ranting about these days is, you've heard me say elections matter. Well, elections matter doesn't really work unless we have candidates. Candidates matter.
Yeah.
And I am incredibly disappointed in the
3.
number of candidates across Central Virginia, how many unopposed races we're looking at. And that has nothing to do with who's in the seat. It has to do with the discussion. When you look at Charlottesville City Council, you have 2 independents running against 2 Democrats. That means you're going to have a conversation about the future of Charlottesville. It is a great opportunity for the public to be engaged and to participate in the elections. But it's better when you have candidates rather than a coronation.
His beautiful 7/8 says big thank you to Sir Neil Williamson.
Oh, yeah, man.
For this engaging and informative discussion. Jack says we need more low-income housing in Crozet badly. Neil has this. The Nelson County Board of Supervisors
But how are you gonna do
begins
that?
at 2 p.m., Neil. Yeah. And the Fluvanna County Board of Supervisors begins at 4 p.m.
At 4 p.m., yeah.
So that's what Sean Tubbs is doing. Ray Cadell has something for Neil Williamson. Neil, you're a very well-liked guy. Ray Cadell said, Neil, or Sir Williamson, I added the Sir Williamson part. He actually said Neil. I have convention type dates for my band booked in 2022, 2023, and even 2024. I think just like the wedding business, we may see some convention type explosion. He adds, charity galas, business conventions, etc. are cautiously coming back. We played a transportation group event and is it ophthalmologist group in the last 10 days, both in a large resort hotel in Virginia.
That's fabulous, and I am.
You're happy for that?
I'm happy for it, and I hope that that actually is a great barometer, because first and foremost, Big Ray and the Cool Cats is a fabulous band.
We should be calling him Sir.
But that's a great metric because they're booking those dates. I know how difficult the
That's a consumer confidence barometer.
Yeah, it is. But it also speaks to, we had several dates booked prior to COVID, and then lots of weddings postponed, a few canceled. And so I think Ray's point is valid. There will still be some conventions. The question is, will there be enough conventions to support a convention center in Charlottesville, especially
if we're under a hotel? And if your flights don't go direct places.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm picking up my daughter tonight in Richmond because she's flying in from Boston, and she can fly direct. And so that Boston piece, I've heard at several Economic Development Authority meetings, Boston, just one flight back and forth Boston to Charlottesville because of the technology, and would be well served. But
they have one to New York.
And
they currently have one to New York.
One to New York,
And Chicago.
But they used to have more than that back a few years ago.
Right, but I know you guys are big train buffs, so.
I love the train. I thought it was great. You dropped me off at the train.
Yeah, it was my pleasure to do it.
Was it this past Friday?
Was this past Friday.
And the network survived.
I survived.
You survived. Intrastate?
I'm not going to do it. Intrastate Intimate Service Company of Home's Best Friend.
There we go, Keith. There we go, Keith. Sean's holding us accountable here. He goes, Albemarle used to begin at 9 a.m. Their Board of Supervisor meetings. There used to be a lot more public comment at that session because people could go into work a little bit later. It's harder to do that in the middle of the afternoon.
Agreed. And Sean and I used to be there at 8:55 and watch people roll in. And it was easier for folks to do that than show up at 1 or to show up at 6 because, quite honestly, people have lives. And you can schedule a 9 o'clock with the board easier than dinner's going to be late, kids.
Yeah, but I really believe COVID has helped out a little bit. As most who watch the show know, I sit on several boards and commissions, and it's really improved our ability to connect. It still blows my mind that we are talking about some high-level stuff, and other than you or Sean that are on these different commissions.
Allison's on it.
Allison's on it. Allison's on quite a bit, actually. Thank you for correcting me on that end of adding that information onto it. But look, let's go back to elections matters, and let's go back to candidates matter on that conversation. You're 100%. I can't remember the last time that there were this many unopposed seats.
That's accurate. It's been a long time. I will say that Dennis Rooker ran unopposed once, and we've seen it happen.
But almost every one of our jurisdictions, of our 6 jurisdictions.
Yeah, Charlottesville has a competitive election. There's one contested race.
Nelson.
In Standardsville
There's
for
one in
Green.
Nelson.
There's one in Nelson.
Yeah.
Louise actually has 3, I believe, of their seats that are contested elections. But it is the other thing that I think we have to examine is what are we requiring of members of the Board of Supervisors and City Council?
So I'm glad you brought that up, because starting September and October, I've already teed up a couple of two-on-twos where we're going to have 2 candidates sitting across there, and we're going to talk about these particularly housing, because that's my passion on that, and it's real talk, and that's what we need to talk about that, but other things that pop up. So they, particularly these uncontested seats, so they can get out in front of the public on what their positions are on stuff.
Right, especially in the case of folks that are not incumbents.
That's correct.
But the big thing, I think, is...
That's an interesting point to point out, because there's several seats that are not incumbents that they are basically shoes in, and you should talk about what that means.
Well, it means that you don't have the opportunity to learn or choose a candidate, because candidates matter.
So there was
Jesse Rutherford.
Jesse
Rutherford. Mary Elizabeth Cunningham and Tommy Harver, both running for the North District Board of Supervisors in Nelson County. That's a race that's not unopposed.
Right.
So one in Nelson. There's Jesse Rutherford's Board of Supervisors, Nelson
And
County himself.
Jesse's running.
Jesse's
unopposed.
He's running unopposed, yeah.
Well, Jesse will be sitting in that seat with another Nelson County candidate, and we're going to stack them up over through September and October. Hopefully you will watch, as you always do, and add some great commentary to it.
But at the point that was raised about midday meetings, you were saying the folks that would show up, well, what if you're a supervisor? I mean, we had a supervisor that was that many years ago now, who had a full-time job and had to actually take vacation. This is back when we had the 9 o'clock. He told me that for the 4 years that he was a supervisor, maybe it was 8.
Who was that?
Kenneth Martin.
Okay.
He never took a 2-week vacation because he used a week of his vacation at least every year just to attend board meetings.
Well, how does a guy like, I mean, granted, he's the manager, the general manager of it, but like Ned Galloway.
Right.
I mean, because he's managing the car lots on Pantops.
So I can speak.
And he's taking interviews on this show
And he's-
at car lots.
and he's
got the name tag on
And
it.
he's committed to sit in that seat there and,
Right.
and talk about that. But I mean,
But if you look at who can do the job, and you put the supervisor or the member of council on 6 boards and commissions,
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're Keith Smith, you can't do the work properly. And the benefit that accrues to the board, right now, for instance, Dr. Liz Palmer, there is nobody on any elected board that knows more about solid waste today than Liz Palmer.
without a doubt.
And that's because she made that her passion and dug in, literally, to that issue.
And she's retiring and has handpicked her successor.
She is retiring, and there is no opponent to the Democrat that's running,
Dr. Andrews?
Dr. Andrews.
So,
Yeah.
but there's several jurisdictions, without naming names at this point.
Yona gave a smiley face on volunteering. She gave a smiley
Well,
face.
we have some
He's
news.
got a volaholic problem.
There's some news about that we'll share at a future show, but
Okay.
but
Yona.
not about Yona or about my volaholic.
I
problem.
know. But she wants you to know that she's always watching.
I know that she
Yeah.
knows that she's always watching because I hear it. but I want to talk about that because it's important, and that's the reason why I made this commitment to have these individuals sit in your seat there and have these conversations, and they've agreed to it, which was good news. But nobody ran, nobody put their hat in the ring, right, for these particular seats. One person put their hat in the ring, and guess what? They get elected.
Well, and
unless there's a write-in or something like that.
And remember, there was a write-in many moons
Yeah.
ago in the Samuel Miller District. There was a campaign, write-in Sally Thomas was write-in, and she won over Carter Myers.
But the percentage of that chance of happening is about the same
Well,
as...
and flip it over to the incumbents that are running unopposed. If someone didn't do that, maybe they're doing a good job. Maybe that's what you're hearing, you know? And you've got to accept that as a reality. Nobody was upset enough to run.
I think the reason that's the case is because Board of Supervisors position is 40-plus hours of work a week. You're getting paid $16K and change.
Anybody.
You get half the community disliking everything that you're doing. Half are lukewarm about what you're doing. I mean, it's really a lose-lose-lose proposition in a lot of ways.
So every one of us sitting at this table, if we don't work 90 hours,
Yeah.
I mean, I know you do, and I know you do, and I know I do. So I'm fortunate because I can carve off it. But
Because we make our schedules, what you're saying.
we create our own schedules.
Yeah.
We don't go someplace from 9 to 5.
And
Plus,
so
I'm
yes.
super lucky because I have Mrs. Smith,
A supportive wife.
a supportive
Right.
wife that does that. But you're 100% right. Anytime I talk to somebody running for office, if you don't want to put 30, 40 hours,
You're not going to do it well.
you're not going to do it well.
Yeah, you don't get paid anything. Half the community is going to dislike your decision making.
And I don't know
the
how-
other half is going to be lukewarm about it.
Yeah, sure.
You know, you're going to be traveling all over the district that you're representing if you're going to do the job right.
Plus what Neil has said, because you get put on, most folks don't understand this, you get put on all these commissions and boards, and poor Ned, I volunteer him for stuff all the time to get on it. But I just don't want this to go past that because on certain jurisdictions, because nobody else threw their hat in the ring but one person, that person just got elected.
Well, yeah.
And all that took in certain jurisdictions, 100 signatures, 200 signatures, that's all it took.
Sean Tubbs just put this comment
That's
in.
important, I think.
He said a write-in candidate in the Rivanna district spent nearly $100,000 in 2019 and got 1/3 of the vote.
It's proportionately just, you know, it's like going to Vegas almost.
God, Michael Johnson, right?
But look, the reality of it is, in one particular jurisdiction or a couple jurisdictions, all they needed to do was get their signatures on their come on, help me out, not ballot. What is it called?
It's on their petition to run.
Petition to run.
And the flip side of that is that's all anybody else had to do too.
No, that's the point I'm trying to make. That's the point I'm trying to make. Is
You're saying the barrier of entry is manageable.
the barrier of entry is manageable. We're other than we're going to bring them on this show and your opportunities, your insurance opportunities to chat with them, nobody's going to really understand what their position is until they're seated.
That's true.
Nobody's really going to know
Is there going
what
to be
their
a
position
debate or forum for the 3 folks on the Board of Supervisors? I mean, what's the point of having one if they're running unopposed? Is that the thinking?
The question would be, what is the value of that time? Time is a precious commodity, you say.
Well, I think
often.
we just
Yeah.
described it. What's your thoughts on this? What's your thoughts on that? That's the reason I'm asking them to sit in front of us.
Right.
What's your thoughts on housing? What's your thoughts on whatever?
Well, the other part is that you are somewhat amazed at times when the level of non-involvement by some in the community. That's just not their thing. They don't. I mean, until it impacts them,
Sure.
they're not, tuning
Well,
into.
in fair, to play the flip side to that, in fairness to them, they're trying to put kids through school.
Mm-hmm.
2 parents are working. They depend on folks like yourself and maybe the show or whatever to kind of help them out with this kind of stuff. But it's difficult.
Would be, and this is terrifying.
Uh-oh.
This is literally terrifying. When we post, say on our Instagram, screenshots from this man's fantastic platform, Free Enterprise Forum, the Daily Progress or NBC 29, how many people respond literally, this is how I get my news.
Yeah. Well,
This is how I get my news.
And while I'm at it, let me put a plug in for Sean Tubbs' newsletter, which is really journalism,
Yeah.
as opposed to what I write, which is opinion. So you have to know that I am not a true journalist in the strict
I'm
word.
going to push back on
Well,
that.
he's got to say that.
Yeah, I get it.
With what he does.
I
But
know that.
We should push back because the content he creates
Yeah.
offers a lot of value.
Yes, I accept the fact that you're not a journalist, but you also put facts out there too.
Yeah.
Right? So he or she who reads the facts can determine what, take what they want from that.
That is,
But I'm pushing back on that.
I appreciate that. But Sean Tubbs' newsletter, subscrib.
Without,
Sean Tubbs just liked the show based on that. He just gave it a thumbs up. Thank you, Sean Tubbs.
but
we
also,
just set a new record for Real Talk.
are we? Oh,
Yeah,
look,
it's 11:53.
look at that. Sorry. Real quickly, just a plug for Sean and Neil.
Sean, you're missed.
Sean, take a look at his website. The fee that he charges, I won't quote it because I can't remember, is tiny. It's a cup of coffee, a couple of cups of coffee. Your entry over that is not huge dollars, but it helps, right? It makes a difference. So please support these folks. They're doing great work. Please support them. Please listen to them. Read the stuff, the works that they do. It does matter.
That's the show. Neil, anything you want to add?
FreeEnterpriseForum.org.
FreeEnterpriseForum.org. Fantastic WordPress website. We love WordPress websites.
And the Town Crier.
Town Crier Productions.
Town Crier Productions.
Yeah. Excuse me, I missed that.
Sean's the president of that fantastic platform.
Sean and I have to have an offline conversation about Star Wars because apparently nobody else on this set is interested in the finale tonight of the Bad Batch. But Sean, call me. We'll talk about it. I'm going to do it.
The voice is broken. He's not calling.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's got to
text me. Text me.
Text you.
Text me.
Judah Wickhauer is our director. Neil Williamson, Keith Smith. My name is Jerry Miller. This is Real Talk, presented by Intrastate.
Service company, a home's best friend, and a bunch of other sponsors. So please look at the bottom of the thing to support them.
And support them, please, guys. They make the show possible.
We could not do this without them.
Thank you for joining us on a record-setting edition of Real Talk. The show technically, according to the language in our agreement, is supposed to go to 11 a.m. It is 11:54, and
Actually,
you know what?
I think it's only supposed to go for 45 minutes.
I know, that's why I said 11 a.m.
Got it, yeah.
But you know what? And I'm going to close with this. I would want it no other way.
Thank you, sir.
Because this was so much fun.
Thank you. I've been thinking the whole show about making a plug to Well Hung Vineyard to sponsor because we sure as hell talked to him about it today.
Sean just said, don't forget Interstate Pest Control in the comments. Thank you, Sean. Harry said this was a fun show today.
Thank you, Harry.
And Nancy Gill is getting some props on the feed right now. Guys, take care. Have a good morning. We hope you
Who do you have
enjoyed
on
it.
at 12:30?
Chris Allen, the
All
comedian.
right. Cool.
On the program
Ooh.
today.
Awesome.
You guys take care.